On, guys, and welcome back to Into the Triangle. My name is Sam. Thank you for joining me today. And wow, should it be a pretty good day to be a Red Sox fan after the absolute disappointment that was the trade deadline? The Red Sox come back, they look the entire MLB in the face and say, you know what? Deadlines are for chumps because a deadline is showing that you don't believe in the culture and the guys that you already have. They sweep the Houston Astros to move to 10 games over 500 and have officially taken sole possession of the first wild card spot going into the series starting tomorrow with the Kansas City Royals. Now, a lot to talk about with this series. Let's jump right in. We'll go a little game by game action here, talk about it. I think it's fair to really go in and think that this series just looked very bad for what the Red Sox wanted to do, where you have Cooper Criswell starting the second game because you send down Dick Fitz, or starting the first game because you send down Dick Fitz. You have Walker Buehler starting the second game. Unlike with the Dodgers and the Twins, where you kind of got to see some of their better guys. Or I mean, you didn't have to see some of their better guys with Houston. You had to see Hunter Brown. You had to see Framber Valdez. Hence why, I ended up saying 1 out of 3 in my series prediction from the last podcast. But I mean, these boys just shut my goddamn mouth. They shut my goddamn mouth right up. Also, by the way, not 10 games over 500. We are now 11 games over 500. Just want to say that. Let's talk about game one. Cooper Criswell on the mound. And Criswell was getting a lot of flack pregame, being like, well, I mean, come on. Like, they're rolling out Hunter Brown and we're rolling out Cooper Criswell. Like, what are we doing? Um, People forget like how reliable Criswell was at points last year, like 3.6 ERA and 18 starts. He's a guy that, he posted for you a lot last year and he gave you good innings, meaningful innings. And I mean, man, what more could you have asked for Cooper Criswell from this start? He goes out 7 innings, 7 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks. So, a lot of traffic for him, but he navigated it well, got a lot of clutch ground balls, a lot of meaningful double plays, and it's enough to just get you through this game. 7 innings, 1 earned, no matter how much traffic you give up, is good. Only struck out 4, but 84 pitches through 7 innings worked very effectively, kind of gave way, led to that bullpen, and the guys got it done, and they end up winning 2-1. Hunter Brown in this game was like really, really good the entire way. Didn't strike you out a lot necessarily, but just didn't give up a lot of hard contact. Didn't give up really a ton of hits. Only 4 hits allowed for him, as a matter of fact. But you go 7 innings, and in that seventh, Trevor Story scores on a sac fly from Wilyer Abreu, and the game is tied at 1. Game ends up going to extras. There was like a point where Josh Hader came in, and it looked like you might be able to like really do some damage. I think it was first and second, 2 outs, and Wilyer Abreu had like 2 hits that were like a few inches from being walk-offs. So, you're going into the extra innings and you're thinking, man, oh man, we're just cooked, aren't we? Going into extras, this team, another 1-run loss is on the way. Let's go. And something about the Fenway greens, man, it's just magical what the team is able to do in those Fenway greens. You know, you end up getting the clutch play from Trevor Story, where in the extra inning, throws out the runner at home on just an absolutely perfect little dart to home plate. And then, you get in, all you need is a run, and that's what you get. You get first and second or you get first and third with none out, and Trevor Story with not Trevor Story, Roman Anthony with just a high fly ball, gets the bat on the ball. It's his first career walk off, feels like a big one, and that immediately turned the tide and the vibes for the rest of the series. Going into the series, Red Sox fans, fairly were very negative about where this team was. You were playing an Astros team that added a lot at the deadline, and you didn't. The Astros kind of the cream of the crop in the American League. So you're going in, you're just not feeling good about this series whatsoever. Well, guess what? You get this win. It kind of gets the monkey off your back to say, you know what? We can still win, even though we didn't add. This team can still win. Team can still get things done. And I mean, listen, that's all it took. You get that 2-1 win, and then from there, the Red Sox kind of never looked back, and none of these games ever really felt that close going into game two. You get Walker Bueller on the mound. We'll talk about Walker Bueller in a second, because I think there is a meaningful conversation to be had about Walker Bueller. But you get Walker Bueller on the mound. Their pitcher was, I believe, Chandler Gordon is his name, and he was not good. Lefty, gave up six earned, gave up, I think, three home runs. Abraham Toro hit a homer, Trevor Story hit a homer, Romy Gonzalez hit a leadoff homer. And, while this win was good, and, you felt confident the whole time where it's, the guys were kind of consistently in front. The bullpen was doing its job enough. I think still the game at times felt like it was never really done. Like you felt like you kind of had to keep clawing back. The Astros got on base a ton in this. You gave up in total, Bueller gave up 9 hits, Whitlock 2 hits, Hicks 2 hits, Alcala 1 hit, and then you also walked six. So that's a ton of guys on base, a ton of traffic that you're able to navigate. Bueller was pathetic, 4.1 innings pitched, 9 hits, 3 walks. I mean, the math is not that hard on that. You're getting 3 men on base per inning on average. That's just horrible for whatever Walker Bueller was doing out there. Only gave up 3 runs, but didn't strike out anybody. It was ugly to see Walker Bueller out there on that mound. A lot of hard contact just consistently the whole time. I mean, everything that the Astros were getting a bat on was hit pretty hard. But the bullpen gets it done. Justin Wilson comes in, faces 2 batters, gets 2 strikeouts. Steven Matz with a shutout inning, struck out Altuve. Whitlock with a shutout inning. Hicks, despite whatever he was trying to do, got a shutout inning, clutch strikeout, kind of pumped the fans up. Alcala comes in, doesn't really do anything of value, gives up a walk, gives up a hit, only gets 1 out. And then Chapman finishes the job and gets another, kind of lockdown moment. Red Sox win the series. You're feeling really good. And then you're going into the last game because you wanted to feel good going into this last game because you're thinking, well, they got Framber Valdez on the mound. We got Giolito. How well does that matchup work out for us? Well, apparently quite well. Houston gets on the board in the fourth with a no doubter from Carlos Correa, and Valdez was rolling up to that point, and you kind of think, well, okay, that's probably going to be it. Like Valdez, you're only down one, maybe you can get back into it, but Valdez is rolling. I'm not really feeling confident that you are gonna just get a ton off of him. Well, guess what? In the bottom of the fourth, Boston got him for 6 runs, and that was all that they needed. Valdez, I think, this year at one point only ever had like one outing of 6 runs, and he gave up 6 runs in an inning. So, just a really good offensive performance for the Red Sox where, in game one, they got the hits when it mattered. In game two, they kind of get runs throughout the game sprinkled. And in game three, you get that big inning, and that's enough to power the offense the rest of the way. And, as much as the offense might feel like the story where you have that big sixth, Trevor Story had a really fantastic series. Roman Anthony had a good series. Rob Refsnyder, Romy Gonzalez, all these guys had pretty solid series, all things considered. Sadon had a good series as well. He had a 3-hit day in the finale. As much as you want to talk about those guys, Lucas Giolito, man. I mean, let Lucas Giolito be a lesson to Walker Bueller, and let Cooper Criswell be a lesson to Walker Bueller too, where Lucas Giolito and Criswell are not guys that are going to blow you away with their stuff. They're not going to be throwing 98, devastating fastballs. They're not going to throw a curveball that's going to just be like, oh my God, what am I swinging at down in the dirt? They're not like the Garrett Crochet types where they're going to overpower you with just filthiness and, strike out 10. But they both throw strikes consistently. Lucas Giolito, not Abraham Toro. Oh my goodness, Alex Cora talking about it in the game today, where they pull him aside and they say, "Well, how are you feeling about your starter so far through this one?" And he was talking. He's like, "Well, the velocity isn't there, but he's hitting his spots." And that really is important where you don't need to have these overpowering pitches to throw strikes and be successful. Where Lucas Giolito, he was dotting his fastball, throwing a good changeup, good slider all day. And it's enough to get him through where even though he's only really throwing, 93, 94, he goes 8 innings with one earned, only allows four on base, 3 hits, one walk, only strikes out four. But who cares how many strikeouts you get when you only allow four guys to get on base in 8 innings? That is really valuable. And what Lucas Giolito has been able to do and work himself into this really good pitcher down the stretch has been massive because at this point, I think with what Brian Bayo and Giolito have been, maybe if they can pitch like this down the stretch for you, maybe you can justify the lack of a legitimate impact number two or even number three added at the deadline, where you could say, well, these guys are pitching like a number two and number three for us. So why would we have to add one? Maybe we just add Dustin May to kind of round out this rotation. I think like Lucas Giolito is a legitimate lesson to Walker Buehler as to, hey, if your stuff isn't at its absolute peak where you're not throwing these devastating sliders and these fastballs that are going 99, what you, because we've seen Lucas get up to like 97 this year. What you can do is just be consistent, hit your spots. It'll get guys to swing and miss, it'll get guys to ground out, it'll get guys to fly out. That's what's important. You can't give people free bases, you can't give people easy contact. Hit your spots even if your stuff isn't there. This team could be successful. Lucas Giolito and Cooper Criswell were that in this series. Red Sox complete the sweep. Uh, so yeah, like I said, I just want to point out some real stars. I think Trevor Story is definitely the story, wink, wink, of this series where, you know, he had a nice bomb, got some more RBIs. He's up to 69 RBIs, so leading the team there comfortably. When he's on, the team really does feel different when he's hitting and active. And now you have back-to-back series where you have Minnesota and in this series with Houston, where Story has just been really dynamic defensively, offensively, and he just kind of rounds out this team in a great way when he's hitting like this. You get Roman Anthony up, who is just on a really steady, consistent hit streak and, gives you that big walk off. And then when Romy and Ref Snyder are hitting against these lefties, they make a huge difference. And you're seeing Rafaela kind of start to break out of his slump a little bit, start to find it. Toro is still putting together meaningful at bats. You have Connor Wong with an RBI today. Like that's all all you need to be successful. And I think that this Red Sox team, they know that they're putting something together right now that's special, where you have guys in these post games, especially Trevor Story, who really does seem like the core group leader of the squad, where he's coming out and he's saying, listen, we know what team we have here, and we're playing fun, we're playing hungry, and we're playing loose. And that is allowing them to just play baseball that is consistently good enough where, I mean, this series against the Astros was kind of dominant, but it allows you to play these types of series where, you're going to see a lot of good teams down the stretch with the Astros, with the Padres, with the Yankees, with the Blue Jays, with all these like really steady, solid teams that are, kind of vying for a wild card spot in their conference or even vying for the top spot in their conference or in their league. Now you're talking about this Boston Red Sox team just consistently finding ways to win and putting together effective performances that are getting it done for them game in and game out. And this sweep is so big for the vibes of the team. And what's happening around baseball is so big for the vibes of the team, where this team has some padding. They have padding that was so desperately needed. The Yankees right now are down 3-1 to the Marlins, where if they end up losing today, that's a sweep against the Marlins right after they added this big bullpen and things were really looking up for them. All of a sudden, if the Marlins can hold out and win this game and they get that sweep, you have a 2-game pad on, or a game and a half pad on the Yankees in the division, in the wild card race. The Blue Jays are in the middle of a game with the Kansas City right now, but if they lose, you're only 3.5 back from the Blue Jays, from the top spot in the AL East. And it's also worth noting that the Blue Jays are tied for the top spot in the American League. So this Red Sox team at this point, if you look at the run differential, if you look at where the offense ranks, where the pitching has been in the last couple weeks, and how well this bullpen can be, and when Lucas Giolito and Brian Bayo and Garrett Crochet are all pitching, and if Dustin May can turn into something, this Red Sox team can show you that, like, here we go, let's get going. And very sneakily, this team 5 game win streak. So you have that 10 game win streak pre All-Star break. You kind of survive through the Cubs, the Phillies, the Dodgers. You get that series win against Minnesota, sweep the Astros, and now you have a 3 game set against Kansas City where, Brian Bayo and Garrett Crochet in those first 2 games. So that is a matchup that works out quite well for you, all things considered. And I think it's going to be interesting to see when we look at the end of the week, after this Royals series and after the next couple series that this team sees, could the Red Sox, with just a good stretch, be the best team in not only the AL East, but in the American League? It's really not crazy to say. Through from today through Sunday, you have a 3 game set against Kansas City and a 3 game set against San Diego. San Diego by no means is some world beater. They're a good team, but you just swept a good team with good pitching, with consistent offense. If you can continue your role through this Kansas City series into the San Diego series, and all things considered, if you just take 2 out of 3 from both of those teams, we're talking about in the last week, hey, you're like 7-2 in those last 9 games that you've played. And that can be a big difference. And this team is proving that they just have a scrappiness to them and a energy to them and a never die mentality and just a consistent fight and battle and competitiveness that is letting them be this good even after a disappointing deadline. The last couple years when this team looked like they could make the playoffs and then the front office really doesn't add anything at the deadline, they always die. Now, hey, this team comes out and they just fight hard, and they're not going to go easy because I think this team really does have a belief in who they are, and whether that's due to veterans like Alex Bregman in the lineup, and frankly Trevor Story, was always injured and is now kind of playing his first healthy season. Where does that factor in? This team feels different, and it feels like they have an energy that none of these other Red Sox teams have had in recent years. So let's break down a couple talking points that have come out from the series, and let's see where things stand. The first thing I want to talk about, and I was saying this on Twitter, can we start to literally have a discussion about, should Cooper Criswell be in Walker Buehler's spot? Because, listen, I'm not saying Cooper Criswell is what he is from game one. He's not going to give you 7 innings, 1 earned every time. But to watch Walker Buehler every start and just have it be consistently non-competitive, can't throw strikes. He gets into these 2 strike counts and then he can't throw a strike. He can't get guys out. He can't consistently, strike out people. Every bit of contact he gives up is really hard. I'm very tired of watching Walker Buehler, and I think Cooper Criswell would just be more effective every day in this lineup. And, it's not that crazy to say. Like, Walker Buehler, sure, every 3 starts, he's going to give you 6, 2 earned, and you're going to be like, okay, I'll take that. But every 2 of 3, he's going to give you a very uncompetitive start. And I don't know if it's just me, but I did feel like maybe the opinion on Walker Buehler could be changing where, the vibe around Buehler was very obviously has been that, well, we're going to give him 1 more at least. Like every single time he gives a bad start, it's like, we're going to give him 1 more. We're going to give him 1 more. And he just keeps throwing bad to mid starts, and you keep trotting him out there and just hoping that it fixes itself. This game with Cora, pulling him as quick as he did, where, like in the fifth, he's walked a couple, he's given up hits, and it's just like, okay, yep, you're out of the game. I feel like I we haven't seen a hook as quick with Bueller like that before, where, for a lot of the season, they've been letting Bueller just kind of die out there. Like they'll just let him just throw. And maybe that's because of the series importance, because of the team that you're playing. I'm not sure, but still, I just you have to be able to acknowledge when you need to cut bait. And I've never seen a pitcher more clearly cooked. Few guys just get this many opportunities to suck every time. Like it's very rare that players get chances over and over again to suck. And I like Walker Bueller as a guy, which makes it tough. And I don't really like to like diss players, but I think Walker Bueller is the worst player on the team. And he starts for you every 5 days. It's him or Connor Wong. Like he is this year, he is the pitching equivalent of Connor Wong, where it's just like every time he's on TV, you're just like, can you do something? Like do anything. Throw a strike. And when he does throw a strike, it's like a middle fastball that gets tanked. Like it's either for Bueller, he so many times. I mean, I think I tweeted about it actually, where he gets into these 3-1, 3-0 counts, and then he throws a middle fastball. And I recorded at least three of them in game two. One was the home run to Christian Walker, and two others were like 100+ mile an hour singles. So his strategy is, I'm going to get down these counts and I'm going to throw a middle straight as hell 95-mile-an-hour fastball that obviously gets tanked because any hitter that's worth a damn is going to rip on that pitch. So like, I'm done with Walker Bueller. I really am. I'm done. I'm not giving him, if I'm in the Red Sox front office, I'm not giving him one more start. I'm not. And I don't see any reason to, especially now that you have seen what Cooper Criswell at least can do. I think I'd rather have Cooper Criswell go out and only give me 5 mid innings, because that can still give a team like this a chance to win. And it's so demoralizing to have to watch Walker Bueller every 5 days on this goddamn team. I can't watch it anymore. And I think you've seen what Criswell can give you. Just let him go. Let him go. Let him run. And if he starts to stink, maybe it's Kyle Harrison time. Maybe it's, David Sandlin time. I think that is just the clear, obvious next step for this team. And I think it's the last hurdle to really clear as far as, is this a serious baseball team? Just get Walker Bueller off the team, and I feel so much better about things. And Criswell is not a even good pitcher, but I don't think he's actively bad, even though he's like a AAA guy who had one start, and maybe I am overreacting. But we saw him last year. He was very serviceable for you last year, and he gave you good outings, and he's been very good in AAA. So it's not like there's any clear sign of regression, and he just showed you that he can do it at the major league level. What more is it going to take to say, yeah, Criswell isn't is better than Bueller? Bueller, Criswell maybe doesn't add anything, but I don't think he's going to actively subtract for what you're trying to do. I think Bueller does. He makes every fifth game harder to win. And I'm not asking for him to go 7 shut. I'm not expecting him to be Garrett Crochet, but I'm not expecting him to be worse than like, I mean, like, who's a pitcher that is as bad as Garrett Crochet, as Walker Bueller, that gets as many outings as he does? Like, I'm thinking like Martin Perez in 2021. Like, he was bad. He threw a lot. Like, is that the last time the Red Sox have carried a pitcher that bad this deep into the season? Like, is it Corey Kluber? Like, what is the line for what Walker Bueller is? Because you're paying him $20 million. And I know that you gave him a big contract and you hyped it up, and like it would be viewed as a failure of the pitching lab. Well, guess what? I don't care if the pitching lab fails once because we've seen the results that this team of this pitching dev that has worked out for this team, like Aroldis Chapman. You have Brian Bayo, you have Lucas Giolito, you have Justin Wilson, you have Greg Weissert, where all these pitchers are developed into like truly good, solid pitchers. I'm done with Walker Buehler. That's my rant. I'm done with him. Just bring Cooper Criswell up and just let him be mid. I'll take mid. That's all I want. And you can't keep throwing him out there, man. You can't keep throwing him out there. You can't because you need the offense. The offense needs to score like minimum three or four, or not even three, like four runs to give Bueller a win. Like that's just the truth. So we'll see what happens on that front. Frankly, I don't expect it to change, but who knows? I like a Phantom IL, anything. Like if you want to say, well, let's keep him in the clubhouse, like he's a good leader for the guys, throw him on the IL. Oh, my elbow's barking. Yeah, sure. 15-day and then it turns into a 60-day or something, you know. A couple more, this is typically at the end of the podcast is typically what I would have had reserved for like trade deadline rumors. Obviously, that's gone. So we're just going to talk about general Red Sox news. Marcelo Meyer not looking good. He got a shot in his wrist. Bob Nightingale this morning said that there's a chance that he could need season-ending surgery. We'll see how that plays out. Corey, I believe, said he's got that shot in his wrist and he's going to work, do like some baseball activities in the next couple days and see how it works. But there is a chance that we don't see Marcelo Meyer playing again this year, which would obviously be a big time bummer. Uh, Tanner Houck. Poor Tanner Houck, man, gets Tommy John. We will not see him for obviously the rest of this year and probably won't see him next year. Just really unfortunate for the guy who, last year was like a Cy Young candidate up until the All-Star break. And then after that, just kind of never found it. Maybe we saw signs that he was going to need Tommy John at the end of last year, where just was not giving you consistent outings. And at the start of this year, I mean, it was just horrible, was never good. Like even in spring training, never had a good outing. So I think it's clear and obvious that something was wrong. And I think this is very unfortunate for a guy who we all thought had a very bright future for the Red Sox, but kind of just cements the fact that there's probably a guy who, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we never see him pitching for the Red Sox again in the majors. We'll see. Wish him the best and, best to luck on his recovery. And hopefully we'll get a version of what he was last year back at some point in the future. And, Justin Slayton. Really good news on Justin Slayton. So, bad news on Meyer, bad news on Houck, good news for Slayton. Turns out that they found the issue with his back. Like he had started throwing and then had stopped throwing. And then he had an interview with Bradfo and said, you know what? My back feels really good. We found out the problem. It turns out he had like a bone growth, uh, pinching a nerve in his back, and they like went in there. It was like a mildly invasive surgery, and they shaved down that bone. And now he said he feels really good. And hopefully, this is a guy who could join your bullpen down the stretch because we've seen the lack of like legitimate righty depth in this bullpen where even the one bullpen ad that you had was Steven Matz. Outside of that, like you have back end guys like Whitlock and Weissert who are both really good, but as far as like middle inning guys go, like Alcala, Hicks, not a ton of really good righty options there. Your bullpen could look so different if down the stretch, you could have a situation where like your bullpen is so good that you have Justin Slayton pitching in the seventh inning. That is like to have an idea of like Slayton, like you could have if let's say you're in the playoffs and Giolito goes five, you could have a situation where you literally have Weissert, Slayton, Whitlock, Chapman to close the game. And like those are four legitimately like solid relief pitchers that have been pitching for you well this season. And getting Slayton back would just change the outlook on this bullpen so much. So that's a positive thing. As far as that goes, don't really have much else. Series MVP, for sure. Story. I think Story is the best guy this series. Shout out to Toro for hitting a home run against his former team. So all that really fun. I'll give a quick series preview going into Kansas City, give my quick prediction. So it's Brian Bayo versus Bailey Falter. Garrett Crochet versus Bennett. No, not Bennett Sousa. Why did it pull up Bennett Sousa when I click this guy? Who's this? Ryan Bergert? He looks all right. He has 34 Ks. I don't know. Yeah, he started 7 games, only 11 games pitched. So he looks kind of like a mix of looks like an opener for them. Honestly, 7 games started. He's only thrown like 35 innings. And then Dustin May versus, hey, old friend alert, Michael Wacha. Good year. 3.38 ERA. I will say 2 out of 3. I think we take the first game. I like the Brian Bayo versus Bailey Falter matchup in game 1. And I also say we take game 2, Crochet versus an opener. I like that a lot. And I think we probably lose the closer, Dustin May's first game in a Red Sox uniform, not necessarily banking on anything crazy there from, my boy May, but, hopefully things work out and we'll see what he has to do. And hopefully the Red Sox can continue this roll they're on and take, or fourth straight series. From the Royals. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts on the series in the comments below, your thoughts on the upcoming series. Please like and subscribe if you liked the video, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.